Let's talk about a story where freedom wasn't won with a bang, but with a whisper. A story where the greatest tool for escape wasn't a lockpick or a weapon, but absolute, unbroken silence.
This quote, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? We're not just talking about a prison break. We're talking about a man who turned silence into a weapon, a scream so powerful it could tear down walls without ever laying a hand on them.
So our story unfolds in a place literally carved into the Colorado mountains, ADX Florence. Look, this isn't just any prison. It's a modern-day fortress. It's a monument to being impenetrable. We're talking 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement in soundproof concrete cells. It was built with one single purpose, to be 100% escape-proof.
And inside this fortress, among thousands of inmates, there was this one guy who was different. Officially, he was John Doe, hashtag 24601. But to the guards, he was something else entirely. A ghost, a fixture. They just called him the Silent Man.
10. For 10 years, a full decade, he had not spoken a single word. Can you imagine that? Not a request, not a complaint, not even a whisper. The kind of willpower that takes is just staggering.
And here's the crucial part, the thing you have to understand. His silence made him invisible. He wasn't a threat to be watched, he was just part of the background, like a stain on the floor or a crack in the wall. He became part of the mind-numbing routine.
So you have this decade of complete, total silence starting back in 2013, and it all leads up to one very specific morning, March 14th, 2023, a day that began just like the 3,652 days before it, but would end up rewriting the history books.
So picture it. You got Officer Miller walking his usual beat in D Block. The squeak of his shoes, the jangle of his keys, a rhythm he's heard 1,000 times. Everything is predictable. Everything is safe. Until that is, he gets to cell 24601. He peers through that little window on the door. Same as every other day. But this time, his blood just turns to ice. That feeling, you know? The simple feeling of a person being there, it was gone. The cell was empty.
And just like that, chaos. The alarms start blaring. The whole prison goes into an unprecedented lockdown. Imagine the sound of 1,400 steel doors slamming shut at once. The perfect, unbreakable record of ADX Florence was officially shattered.
So the investigation kicks off, but honestly, it just makes things weirder, because they find nothing. Absolutely nothing. No force locks, no scratches, the security tapes are clean, no physical evidence at all. It was as if the man just evaporated.
Well, almost nothing. Because sitting there, right in the dead center of his perfectly made bed, the investigators found one single thing. A small, neatly carved wooden chess pawn. Was it a message? A clue? A joke? Nobody had a clue. This was the problem that had the FBI completely stumped. I mean, what do? How do you investigate a crime with no crime scene? How do you track an escape with zero evidence of an escape? You're not chasing a man anymore. You're chasing a ghost. But then, just as they were hitting a brick wall, the lead investigator, a guy named David Thorne, he comes forward, and he has this idea, this radical new perspective that would change everything. He told them they were looking at it all wrong.
And here is the breakthrough. It was a simple but brilliant shift in thinking. The question wasn't about physics. It wasn't about how a person gets through solid steel. It was about psychology. They stopped asking how he got out and started asking what got him out. He hadn't broken the prison's walls. He'd broken the guards' minds.
Thorne's entire theory hinged on this one psychological concept, the perceptual blind spot. See, when you see the same thing day in and day out, your brain eventually stops observing it and just assumes it's there. The Silent Man had spent 10 years turning himself into a blind spot. He weaponized routine.
Thorne laid it out as a kind of masterpiece of social engineering, a 4-step plan. Step 1. For 10 years, you observe every single detail of the system. Step 2, you become the most predictable, boring part of that system. Step 3, you use that predictability to create that mental blind spot in the guards. And then, Step 4, you simply walk through the walls they've built in their own minds.
And that's really the genius of it. He didn't fight the system. He didn't break it. He joined it. He blended in so perfectly that when he finally made his move,
Maybe during a shift change, a moment of distraction, nobody noticed. Why? Because they weren't looking for something to change. They assumed it never would.
Which brings us right back to that little chess piece, doesn't it? The one clue left on his bed. That pawn wasn't a random object. According to Thorne, it was his signature. It was his final, brilliant statement to the world.
Think about it. In chess, the pawn is the weakest, most disposable piece on the board, but it has one amazing hidden power. If that tiny pawn can make it all the way across the board to the other side, it gets promoted. It can become a queen, the most powerful piece in the game. He was telling them exactly what he did. For an entire decade, he let them see him as a pawn, captive, weak, insignificant. But with one final, perfectly timed move, he crossed the board. He checkmated the whole system. And in doing so, he became a queen. He was free.
Now this is where the facts end and the legend really begins. Who was he really? Why the decade of silence? And the biggest question of all, where is he now? These are questions that honestly we'll probably never get answers to, and that just cements his story into myth.
To really grasp how incredible this is, you have to remember, ADX Florence had a perfect record, 100% secure. He is the 0.1%, the single solitary anomaly who proved that even the most unbreakable fortress on Earth could be defeated, not with force, but with pure intellect.
And in the end, his story is just this unforgettable reminder, isn't it? It proves that sometimes the greatest strength isn't about making noise or fighting back. It's about patience, observation, and understanding people better than they understand themselves. That can be more powerful than any steel door.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. His story really makes you ask yourself, what so-called impenetrable walls in our own lives are built not out of steel and concrete, but just out of our own perceptions, our own routines? What's really stopping us?